When I joined the Missionaries of God's Love, which is a religious order that I'm part of, or a group of priests, brothers and sisters, come together on this like one lifestyle. The first year we had many opportunities to go on silent retreat. And so what that was is once a month or every 2 months, or a 1 day, 8 day or 9 day a year. I can't remember, it's been a while. From the first year. Sorry? 3, 5, and 8, thank you. Go on these silent retreats where you wouldn't speak to anyone, you wouldn't text anyone, you wouldn't, was it Messenger or anything, no WhatsApp, just silent and praying the whole time. You can catch up with a spiritual director on the long ones like every second day. Anyway, without getting too detailed, I'd always find myself going through the same rhythm. You know, first thing I'd do was I'd have to clean my room. How can I pray with a dirty room, you know? So I'd go to my room and I'd do like a spring clean, and I said, it has to be perfectly clean. My room's never perfectly clean, so I don't know why, on the retreat. And then after that, I thought to myself, well, I need the best spiritual book there is, like, you know, because I'm going on retreat and I need spiritual reading. And so I'd go to the library, and then another half a day's gone, you know, searching for the ultimate spiritual book, when I had many spiritual books on my desk, probably. It's a true story. I wish it wasn't. Anyway. And then I went to the fridge, and I noticed that some of the vegetables are going off. Now, there's always vegetables going off in the brother's house. But I thought, we can't waste food in this house. And so I made a soup, and it's another half a day gone. So I did everything I could, to distract myself from the one thing that was necessary. The only reason why we were there for a retreat. I remember this story in the Bible. You may have heard of it. It's called the story of Martha and Mary, where Jesus is at two sisters' house, and Martha is busy with the task of hosting and serving. She's in the house cooking, and she gets a bit annoyed at her sister who's just at the feet of Jesus. Mary just listening to him, just being present to him. And then Jesus says to Martha, "Martha, Martha," the Lord answered, "you are worried and upset about many things, but few things are needed, or indeed only one. Mary has chosen what is better, and it will not be taken from her." This memory came to mind when I was reading the gospel today, because it's the same message, and it's also scattered throughout different verses. This really, really important message of Jesus of what's the most important thing in the spiritual life. We might ask ourselves that question. What is the most important thing in the spiritual life? I think what the gospel today teaches us is it's knowing him. Knowing Jesus. It's being present. It's being available to him. And I think if we go through to the gospel today, we get that same message. In fact, Jesus is giving us an example, an analogy of a master of a house. So in your own house, I'm sure you don't just let anyone in. You know, if people knock on the door, you open up, I know them. Oh, hey, it's John. Hey, John, come in for a cup of coffee or something. But if it's late at night and you don't know the person, of course you're not going to let someone in who you don't know. It's the message is, do we know Jesus? It is possible. And then the people said, but we ate and drank in your company and taught as you taught in our streets. But he will reply, I do not know where you come from. So that it's possible that there not only were there people who really were close to Jesus, but there were people who were around him who ate and drank with him, who heard him teaching, but they didn't know him. They didn't know him personally. It is possible to be around someone, follow them around, even for years, and to not know them. I had this experience when I was studying university before, in Canberra, before I joined the Missionaries of God's Love. There was a few people who I ran into at uni, and they went to school with me, and they said, "Hey, Justin, how you going?" And I said, "Oh, I'm sorry, I don't know who you are." And they said, "We went. My name's whatever. My name's etc." And I said, "That doesn't help me. You don't know me. I don't really remember. Sorry." And then they said, "We went to school with you for years. We sat in the same class." I said, "Oh, yeah, nice to see you. So great, how you been?" And then I had no idea who they were. So it's possible. Now, how is it possible to know Jesus? This is the most important thing in the life. So how do we know him? Well, tonight I've only got 2 pieces of advice, and feel free to write them down on the bulletin or on your phone or whatever you want to do. Just 2 simple pieces. Establish a prayer rhythm and practice the presence. What does that mean? First, prayer rhythm. It's important to have some sort of structure with our getting to know Jesus. It's important to have some sort of regular time where we meet God. Some people wake up and grab their Bible and drink a bit of coffee. Some people go for a walk and just pay attention to God in the nature. Some people put on worship songs as they go to work. The point here is not to make it too hard that we can't do it easily. We want to think to ourselves, what's something that's achievable, non-friction, kind of low-hanging fruit that I could do that I'd really enjoy every day? Maybe for you it's one of those things. Maybe it's something else. And how long would you do it for? Well, how long can you do it for? Is 15 minutes? That's great. There's a monk in Tarawera Abbey right now, Father Michael, and he said it's as you do little bits every day is better than doing a whole lot every now and then. Because the little bits every day, it builds and it builds, and before you know it, you've got this long history with God. It's a beautiful image, like a ball of yarn. If you just take a little bit of string, and every day you wind it up, eventually you have this big ball of yarn after a while. So that's what it's like with God. So structured prayer time. Now, that structure also, and also unstructured time, spontaneous time with God throughout your day. And one of the more famous people who's taught the church about this, one of the saints, his name is Nicholas Herman, before he took the religious name of Brother Lawrence of the Resurrection. Now, this is an interesting story. So, Nicholas Herman was a self-confessed bit of a klutz, okay? He was really hard on himself. He joined the army and the military, and he wasn't very good at it. And then he was the treasurer's, he was working for the treasurer, and he would break things, and he wasn't really good at that either. And so later in life, back then that was like 25 or 26, well, later in life, but they was too old to become a priest. But he decided to join the Carmelite monks. And the reason why was because he was outside when he was 18, he had a conversion experience. And this very simple experience, there was a tree like Melbourne in winter where there's no leaves. We had one brother who thought our trees died in the backyard in Canberra, and he started cutting them down. He's like, no, it's Melbourne. Okay, so they lose their leaves, and when he saw that, he said, oh, look at that tree, and he felt the Spirit saying, that tree is going to blossom with fruit and flowers soon. And that's what the providence of God is like, even though it's barren now. And he had this beautiful experience of God. So he was led to the Mount Carmel to to become a monk. And his job was simply to be the cook. He didn't like cooking. He couldn't be a priest. He couldn't be educated because it was too late, and he was pretty simple. And so he would just faithfully every day cook for the community. And what he would do was, he made himself a task, because the prayers were too hard for him, of just simply practicing the presence of God every day, which at first was very difficult for him because he had an interior struggle of scrupulosity, being really harsh on himself. And so every day he'd just say, Lord, I'm doing this work for you. Let me know your presence. Let me converse with you throughout the day. And every now and then his mind would wander, but he'd try and bring it back onto God, focusing his heart on God, so that when he'd eventually, after training himself to practice for years, people would see him in the kitchen, and there's great peace and great kind of serenity, so happily doing what he was doing. And then after he died, his letters to his spiritual director were compiled, And they became this book, Practicing the Presence of God, which is a Christian classic, not only in the Catholic Church, but I've heard other Protestant churches speaking about it quite a bit recently, actually. And he's touched the lives of millions of people with these lessons, basic lessons. But here's one quote from Brother Lawrence. He said, "We should build in ourselves an awareness of God's presence by continually talking with him." This is a practice. This doesn't happen all at once. But the more we pause throughout the day and just have a conversation, be aware of the presence of God, the more we'll be tuned to it and the easier it'll become. So it's possible to be aware of God throughout the day, and of course it is. Jesus said, "Abide in me as I abide in you. Just as the branch cannot bear fruit by itself unless it abides in the vine, neither can you unless you abide in me." So back to that image where he had that image of the tree that had no leaves, but eventually would be full of fruit. Well, that happened in his life because he abided in Jesus. Throughout the day, he would just be present to him, and he'd be filled with love for him throughout the day, and his life bore so much fruit. Brothers and sisters, as we go from here, let's just pause for a moment and think, what's the rhythm that I could set up, the structure I could set up, where I could get to know Jesus? And how can I, throughout my day, lean in towards him? Be present to Jesus just in my own day. Speak to him throughout my day. The beautiful prayer we opened with, the collect, it says, amid the uncertainties of the world, maybe it's chaotic at our lives this moment, let our hearts be fixed on you. No matter what's happening in our lives, let us have those moments throughout our day where we abide in the Lord. So we can bear fruit too. We can know him personally and intimately. In Jesus' name, amen.